Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lutherist Podcast. This is Jason Rodgers. I'm flying solo this week on episode 158, talking with Jim Bonnell of Bonnell Guitars. Jim's located in the Tampa Bay area, building some really cool electric guitars with some interesting, unique finishes, using some beautiful woods that he has acquired from the local area and up and down the East Coast. Hope you enjoy the conversation with Jim. Want to remind you that we still have our survey, our listener survey up, and your responses have been so very informative and important in helping us learn about who you are, the listener, and about what interests you. And some of these answers, some of these responses you're giving us are leading directly to different shows, such as our building neck construction show, such as our finishing show, and our just recent two-part electronic show. So we really appreciate you continuing to take a few minutes and answer some questions there. Also, if you just want to directly ask us questions that could possibly end up on the show, find us on our Instagram, find us on our Facebook, find us on our email. You can find that all in the description here. And of course, as always, we appreciate your patronage. You can subscribe to the Lutherist Podcast, help us make this show the best that it can be. Again, appreciate your listening, appreciate your participation, and hope you enjoy our show with Jim. Jim, welcome to the Lutherist Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Jason. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate you inviting me.
No, it's we've known each other for a while now, and I've been a fan of your work. And so, when thinking about who to invite on the show here, you were definitely one of the people on my list because you do cool work, and I want to know more about it. So, I'm calling from the left coast, and you're sitting here on the right coast, and so you're in the Tampa Bay area, yeah?
Right, just a little north of Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So no, that is. I thought you were on the peninsula out there. So you're actually more inland a bit.
No. I'm on a barrier island north of Tampa Bay. There's a chain of little barrier islands that run for quite a ways, and I'm on one of those that just kind of between St. Pete Beach and Clearwater Beach.
Okay. So you're right on.
Just a little ways off the mainland.
So you're on the Gulf side then, yeah, in open water there, huh?
Yeah, actually, our house is on the bay side of the island.
Okay.
But it's only about a block to the beach. So
well, that's cool. And your day job has something to do with the ocean, doesn't it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been in the commercial fishing industry for most of my adult life.
Wow.
I own a 44-foot grouper boat, which I ran for years myself. Now I have somebody else running it for me and kind of living off the sweat of another man's brow. So when they get in, they're normally gone for about 2 weeks at a time, and they're out right now. And then when they get in, I've got all the maintenance and oil changes and anything that needs to be fixed and all that, getting it ready for them to go again.
So and you do that yourself, all the finishing, the woodwork, the engine work, and all that kind of stuff?
The majority of it. Electronics, I have to have somebody come and repair. Mechanical stuff has not been my favorite thing, but I've had a friend of mine that is an excellent mechanic, and he has done a lot of my work for years as far as like major overhauls on the engine and stuff. And he always makes me work with him. And now he's getting to the point where he's a little old to be doing it. So the last time I had to overhaul the engine, it was my job with him sitting up in the cabin bitching at me from there to, no, do this, you're doing it wrong. So I ended up overhauling it pretty much myself with his guidance. Before that, I was really good at tearing them down and cleaning parts and painting. But as far as reassembling diesels and getting everything just right, it wasn't my strongest point. But I was kind of forced into learning along the way.
I bet. 44-foot boat. That's a serious piece of craft there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you gotta maintain there and keep going, especially if people are out on the water for that long.
Well, they take a lot of abuse. They get a lot of use, and there's always something that needs to be repaired on them or replaced, or just maintained and kept up to where it needs to be functional and not break down and cause them lost time and all of us income and all while they're out there, and have everything be safe.
Right. Safety, definitely. It's probably a pretty serious deal. So it seems, I know, and we talk to people who have all sorts of different day jobs and all sorts of different backgrounds. So where's the link, or is there a link between your work in the fishing industry and getting into guitars and guitar building and stuff?
I don't know if there's exactly a link, but there's an event, I guess. I've loved music my whole life. I mean, I was really fortunate when I was in high school. I had some friends that had excellent taste in music, and were like mentors to really turn me on to, well, first of all, a lot of old blues. I really like, Leighton and Hopkins and Mississippi John Hurt and Mississippi Fred McDowell and all those guys, and then Taj Mahal and Ry Cooder, and good stuff that I still think is great today. And then along the way, I listened to the stuff that everybody listened to, Led Zeppelin and Hendrix and a lot of the classic guys. But then I had a little jaunt into bluegrass, and at that time it was a little more progressive type stuff like Earl Scruggs Review, which he did with his sons, and Doc Watson and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and stuff like that. And I decided to get a banjo. That was my first exploration into playing music.
We'll forgive you for that.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why. If I thought that was going to make me a chick magnet or what, I don't know. But it did. It didn't take. And I took lessons for a little while, and it just didn't work for me. And eventually, I started fishing, and being gone for a couple weeks at a time, it's really hard to have a whole lot of other stuff going on, because when you get in, I come home, kiss the girlfriend, pet the dog, pay the bills, work on the boat, and be gone again.
Oh, wow.
And then after a number of years of doing that, I was diagnosed with throat cancer, and I had to take. I ended up taking about a year off to go through the process of dealing with that. And I'd hired a guy that used to work for me as a crew member that I thought would be a really good shot at being somebody who could run the boat and do good with it. Mm-hmm. And he worked out really well. And I'm kind of like, oh man, this is kind of cool. Once I get through all this, I've kind of got, there's a life outside of being gone all the time. and so I decided to, actually I was at a party with my wife with some employees that she worked as a writer for the St. Pete Times. And we were there, and some of the people there broke out some instruments and were, cool. Banjo and acoustic guitar and some other stuff. And I thought, man, I'd love to do that. And this girl was saying, no, you can. You can do this. I said, I can't even tune anything. She goes, well, they got tuners now, those newfangled things. So we had a great shop in St. Pete called the Bluegrass Shop. And unfortunately, a few years ago, the owner passed away and it eventually closed down. But they used to have weekend jams there, and they had lessons. And so I started going in there, and I love the mandolin. I started taking mandolin lessons. And I bought kind of it was a Washburn, but it was a nice little instrument for the money. Mm-hmm. And started taking lessons, and actually for about 2 years, I think I took lessons, but I just never got any good at it. I mean, I could kind of regurgitate, and that was about it. I just didn't have the feel for it. But I love the instruments. And we were up we took a trip up to New York City and went over to Staten Island to the Mandolin Brothers.
Oh, cool.
Oh man, what a trip that place was. They had and the owner, he's passed away since, but he was just like the nicest guy. And they had all these like really expensive instruments, and he's just taking them off the wall going, here, try it. And I found this mandolin that I really liked. It was a used one. It was a Phoenix built by Rolf Gerhardt in Maine. And I thought, I don't want to spend that. I got home. My wife goes, yeah, you got to call them up and order that. So I called them up, and they'd already sold it. But they said, but we can get you another one, a new one. So I got that, and it was a great mandolin. I still have it, but unfortunately, it sounded really good, except in my hands, you know. So eventually, I just kind of gave it up. But the instruments intrigued me. I decided I wanted to build an octave mandolin. So I started working on that, and it was going really well until I started doing the binding. And I was using one of those, I won't mention the name, but the little cheap Dremel accessories you use to cut the binding. And it didn't go well, and I ended up ruining it. But a few more attempts, and I backed up a little bit and built a few other things. And I really had no interest whatsoever in electrics. I didn't know why anybody would even want to build them. And because I was like all into the bluegrass thing and everything.
Yeah.
But I had met a guy at a festival who was a really good dulcimer player. And matter of fact, a few years ago at the Winfield competition in Kansas, he won the national mountain dulcimer competition.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted me to build him an electric dulcimer. And I thought, I've got no idea how to do this. So I started researching it and came up with all the stuff I need to know and built a prototype. And he checked it out. He goes, yeah, I like this. So I went ahead and built one, and he loved it. And somehow that really caught on with me. There's something about it I really loved. And I talk to him every once in a while. He lives in Tallahassee. And last time I talked to him, I said, Aaron, are you still playing it? Electric dulcimer? He goes, yeah, I've been playing it in a punk band doing Dylan covers.
What?
So, you just never know, you know?
Right, that's cool.
Yeah.
When you said, "Oh, I want to build an octave mandolin," but I mean, was it that exposure to a handmade instrument that made you realize, like, oh, this is somewhere within the realm of possibility for me? Or was there something else that made you say, yeah, I can actually build a musical instrument?
I'm not sure. It probably wasn't exactly that handmade instrument, but at that time I was so into the mandolins and all, and I saw how versatile they were, that you could play anything from Celtic to bluegrass to classical to there's a lot of mandolin and Zeppelin music. And so I just started going on eBay and watching, and I bought an old Neapolitan, the bowl back mandolins, and then I got a banjolin, going back to the high school thing, I guess, with the banjo. And it still drives me crazy. The dogs bark and it like vibrates. You can hear it going through the house. And then I got a couple of 1920 Gibson A-style mandolins. And I was just really loving the way these things sounded and looked, and exploring how they were constructed. And then along the way, researching online, trying to figure out how to build one, I found out about the Musical Instrument Makers Forum.
Yes.
And it got to the point that every morning, the first thing I'd do when I get up, I'd run to the computer to see if there were any new posts.
Right there with you. And that's where we initially were acquainted, was through through the virtual world, the forum land. And so that for me that was right around 2001. Is that when you found it as well, or even before that?
Let me think. I tell you, I was surprised. I was at the last one this last year, and they have all the group pictures up, and I was thinking, this is my 5th one, I think. And I started looking through them, and it's like, it was actually my 6th one.
You mean the GAL convention?
Oh yeah. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of jumping ahead here, but it was the forum there that ended up leading me to the convention, because a few people were going, "Are you going to this next convention?" And I'm like, "What convention?" And so that's kind of where I jumped ahead a little bit there, but that's
so it must have been somewhere around that same time, late 90s, early 2000s.
Right, probably right around there.
Yeah. That's where I started. That's where I got involved with checking every day. It's maybe sometimes several times a day on the MIMF, and then it was through through people, commenting on, well, this latest article, or did you see this article in American Lutheran? And I'm like, what's this? And then, yeah, I went and became a member of the guild as well. Yeah, there's a lot of extremely helpful information. There's a lot of people that I really owe a lot of thanks to, when it comes to just like that giving nature, that giving community of information and tips and tricks and advice and stuff like that. And so yeah, you've been doing the JL conventions for a long time then.
Yeah. And you're right about the forum there. I often think of all the people that are the moderators that put in all that time and keep things running smooth, and all the people that really encouraged me. And I remember the first thing I built, I was like, oh man, I don't know about putting this up, And one of the things that really got me going was they have it was at that time they had the $100 tele challenge.
Oh, okay.
And I built.
I remember those.
Yeah. I built a Telecaster along a Dan Electro body construction style, trying to keep the cost down. And actually, it came out pretty good. And a few years later, somebody saw it and wanted to buy it.
How about that?
And I changed out pickups and put better pickups and stuff in it by then. But everybody was really supportive. And I remember when I decided to do the first distressed finish on one of them. I was really worried about putting that on because I know like people either love that or absolutely hate it.
Right.
And when I put the pictures up of it, I thought, oh man, I don't know how this is going to go. And I'll never forget. I got this one response from our buddy Randy, the veterinarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, the more I look at that picture, the more I'm attracted to it. And he goes, it reminds me of that girl in high school I wanted to go out with because of her reputation, but was afraid to be seen with. And I think you got this great thing with your logo about tilting the scales in your favor. I can tell you, if I could just work out it, reminds you of the Bonnell guitars, reminds you of the dirty girl in high school you were afraid to be seen with. Oh, no. Not quite as catchy, but
that doesn't exactly roll off your tongue, but
no.
the image is there. That's great.
So I wasn't quite sure how to take that, but I decided to take it positively.
Right. Well, I mean, we left off of the, not wanting to do electrics, not thinking that was something that you would do, to now you've done a $100 Telecaster challenge. Was that your first real dip into a solid body instrument then?
I think that was probably my second or third one.
Mm-hmm.
I think the very first one I had done, I ended up buying a neck and putting on it. I did the body and I bought a cheap neck and put on it. And I ended up just giving that to a friend of mine, a guy that worked for me. And then the next one I built was one I did from scratch, built the neck and everything. And I think that Telecaster one was probably the third build I did, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it was from a very early point that you decided to do some of those distressed finishes then, yeah?
That was a little further down the road probably.
Okay.
But yeah, I saw, like I said, I know people either love them or hate them. Mm-hmm. But I started seeing Fano guitars and I thought, man, I really like these. I liked the designs he was coming up with,
mm-hmm.
Kind of like, as he puts it, I think what could have been,
mm-hmm.
but, and the finishes he put on from either a very mild, distress to, a heavy, distress, road worn sort of thing.
Yeah. So you're, when people go to see, some of your work, so you can find Jim's stuff on Instagram, and that's just Bonnell Guitars, Bonnell, at Bonnell Guitars on Instagram. Some of the things that pop out at me are like you've got this Supro design with the really heavy carve around the deep sort of German recurve carve on that. And you do have some single cut stuff, some Dan Electro type things. you do a little bit of that sort of a telly-ish kind of looking shape. You've got one I see here is like a jazz master, and then of course you've got your own single cut model that's just some really gorgeous stuff there. There's great lines and really cool F-holes and stuff. So when you started thinking about, I'm going to build electric guitars more here, what was the inspiration in terms of the design choices that you started making?
Well, probably like about everybody, I started out with a Telecaster because it was a basic, simple thing to go with, and then I started finding that I was really drawn towards the older style, 50s, 60s type Supros, Dan Electros sort of thing, and I found the Dan Electro thing an easy, cheap way to build to start with as I was experimenting, but then I started doing that body style as far as the construction style with nicer woods, getting exotic woods that I wanted to use or domestics and resawing them myself. And instead of the masonite top and back, doing a really nice top and back on them with different woods for core materials. And actually, I've really gotten away from the whole Dan Electro shape sort of thing. And most of the hollow ones or semi-hollow ones are ones I just route out now instead of doing that style. But I did post some recently on Instagram that were some older ones I had done just because I was getting a photographer to do some pictures, and I had some that I thought looked nice, so I went ahead and had him do those and posted those. But I'm kind of trying to get away from some of that and do more my own designs. And what I found is probably like you've run into, doing your own designs is much, much harder than I ever thought it would be.
Right.
First of all, to get something that nobody has done. And secondly, I don't have the skills to do online SketchUp or any of those. And to try and do it with French curves and all kinds of various tools I've gotten, it's really, really hard to make the lines flow together well and yet look good too. So I pulled off a couple of them that I'm happy with, and trying to get probably about 4, maybe 5 designs of my own that I stick with. I've had a tendency to pretty much build one-offs and not do the same thing over again. I was complaining to a friend of mine, a couple of years ago, but I said, man, I keep making all these mistakes. He goes, well, no wonder. He said, you never build the same thing twice. You're going. So, I start at the beginning, make all the jigs and everything, and work all the bugs out there, and then go to build it. And then it's like, okay, I'm done with that and move on. So I'm trying to get a little more focused and figure. I thought I'd get bored with that, but I find I can mess around more with finishes and various different things that I want to do, and winding my own pickups and that sort of thing that will keep me interested. And I look at somebody like a guy I really admire is Saul Call, and I look at he's got one body design, and it's a great body design, and yet you look at him, all the different models, and they look different because he does different things with them. And like I said, he came up with a great design and really ran with it.
No, that's one of the things that I think is that's one of the things that really inspires me about Saul's work is he's got that glide body shape, and he just builds the hell out of it. You've got what, something like 4 or 5 different trim lines going from just like the simple, solid mahogany body all the way up to the blinged out local maple, semi-hollow type stuff with Bigsby and some awesome Lolar pickups or something like that. Yeah, it's really inspiring to see how you can take one model and just run with it, absolutely run with it. So I'm speaking of taking a simple design and doing some cool things with it. So I mean, you've kind of done everything here. I mean, like I'm looking at your your Supro type instrument, the black one that's got that sort of crackly and checked finish. It's got the Bigsby, a little bit of wear on the armrest there. I mean that looks like. I mean, it's so tastefully done. It looks like an old instrument. How much did you go in? Did you actually do the whole razor blade, like creating the lines and everything?
No, and that one, the checking on that didn't come out the way I wanted it to, but it's kind of like one of those things. It does what it's going to do.
Right.
Now that's normally you can't do this with every finish, but certain types. What I normally use is a waterborne lacquer, and it seems to work with that. It seems to work with nitro, poly, or something like that. I don't think it'd work on. But it's a process of heating it with a heat gun, and then chilling it down really fast.
Oh wow!
And it's a little dicey. And if you're doing it right, you start to hear this little crackling that makes you a little nervous at first as to exactly what's happening.
Right.
And I've done some where I put like a undercoat of white and then a top coat of black. And when the black starts to crack, you get that other coming through.
Oh,
but
wow.
I've got some where it's like it opened up. It's like, no, stop, and it's like it doesn't look good. And that one had bigger checking in it than I had hoped for. I did another. I don't think I haven't had any pictures of it yet. I don't think, but it was an older Supro duotone kind of body style that was done in a sunburst that I did the checking on. And a store that's carrying some of them now for me had done some like great pictures of that and posted it on Reverb. And it's like, man, they came out looking great. You look at that really fine checking, but I'm not exactly sure what does it. I mean, changes it. Sometimes I think it's the amount of time it's cured, the harder it's gotten.
Sure.
And I have changed. I started out with originally with KTM 9. Then I went to Target EM6000, and now I'm using the General. Is
that the high performance of the Enduro?
Yeah, the Enduro bar. No, I'm sorry. The I wrote it down here so I remember it. But the high performance.
Yeah.
The Enduro. That's what it is. Enduro.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know because that's. I mean, it's definitely. When it comes to that checking, doing that that shrink back look where the lacquer is kind of let go in places, I've seen some folks do that with like actually trace it out with a razor blade, and that seems that's definitely more controllable, but maybe not quite as authentic as I suppose it's all it's all relative.
Well, I know that's the way, I guess, the professionals do it.
Okay.
I can't remember his name, Tom. I think somebody, I can't remember his last name, that worked, I think, at Gibson, that's really well known for doing those finishes. And I saw a video of him doing it with a razor blade. How in the world he does it, I don't know. But it looked good. And I think
I suppose you got to see enough. You got to see enough of the originals to know kind of where, over which contours and which areas of the body are most likely to pull back and to check and how they do that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think Dan Earlywine just recently did one of the trade secret videos on distressing, and I think he hit on that a little bit with the razor blade. I played around with it just on a scrap piece, and it wasn't my thing.
Right.
But the other, it's I don't know which is more authentic. It just. And it's kind of out of your hands. It just kind of does what it's going to do. Sure. But it is kind of dicey because with the heat gun, it takes a while to do it, to get it heated up enough. Yeah. And you got to be very careful if you've got a glue joint.
Right.
And I've also melted down some of the finishes. Like all of a sudden it started to bubble. Too far.
Because and speaking of going too far with the heat. One of the most recent guitars that you've posted is a Telecaster thing with a burn and brush, the Shosugiban, and that's just amazing. The topography that you were able to pull out of that what is it? Is that an ash body on that one?
Yeah, that's swamp ash. And
yeah,
I was pleased with the way that came out. And once again, that was a dicey thing with the center joint.
Yes.
I wish I'd had a one-piece blank for that, but I didn't. But I've kind of rethought the whole thing. I think if I do it again, I'll probably drill and dowel the center and use hot hide glue, and then clamp it as I heat it. And then once it cools, take the clamps off and hit the spots on the side with the torch. That way, with the hide glue, if it heats up and softens, it's just going to set up again.
Right. That's a good idea.
With the tight bond, if that happens, it's not going to reattach itself.
No, it just actually burns.
Yeah. So I got it charred enough in the center area, but didn't keep a torch there very long at all.
Right. It was when you first posted that guitar, I thought that there was some sort of trickery with you know how with photography you can do selective areas of black and white and color, because the pick guard and the knobs have that just amazing contrast. You know, you just got this stark black Shosugi body, and then you've got this tortoise tortoloid pick guard and knobs, and it's just like the contrast is so striking. It's really cool. It just like you just like to look at it for a long time, because that was some good thinking. That was some good planning on your part.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I was happy with that one. The pick guard is some celluloid that I got, which is, as I'm sure you know, is really pricey stuff. I think I paid $90 for a piece big enough I could get four of those pick guards out of if I was careful. And when it's kind of transparent, so when I put it on there, on that black, it kind of disappeared. And I thought, well, that's not going to work. So I put copper foil on the back of it. And
how about that?
Boy, when the light hits it, it just like it lights up. And I've been experimenting with casting my own knobs, and I've been trying to make some tortoise type knobs. And I'm not quite there yet. I'm getting close, but I've got a little more work, I think, to do on the molds to get it all worked out. But I did find somebody, and I can't even remember his name right now, that makes cast knobs and sells them. And some of what he had was the tortoise ones, which fit in pretty good with the pick guard. So I was really kind of happy the way that all turned out.
How are you? What kind of products are you using for your knob casting?
A couple I've tried. The last I used was actually what I've been using for the casting on was Smooth On.
Okay.
There's a company in Orlando, which is a distributor, which is about 2.5 hours, 2 hours or so from here, depending on when you hit the traffic, if you don't get rush hour. And they had some free workshops and all. So I went over there and I talked to them, showed them I bought some stuff, and then I went back after I cast it to get a few more tips on how I could improve it. And they were real helpful. Another one I'd used playing around with some other stuff that I haven't actually used casting knobs yet was Alumilite. And it's I think they're pretty similar products, really. But they sell all the material for making the molds for the casting, the color. They've got luminescent stuff you can put in, and glitter and whatever, pretty much whatever you want.
That's cool. I know that locally here we have a company called Tap Plastics that sells some kits for casting. So you get the whatever the molding stuff, the silicone mold. So you make your outside mold, and then they have, it's probably some epoxy based actually resins and stuff to make the object itself. It's cool that you're having some success with that, and that's something that definitely I want to try everything. Sometimes I need to kind of control myself in terms of like which rabbit holes I decide to dive down, because if you're doing one thing over here, it means you might not be doing something over here. So that's cool. Another thing that people are probably going to notice really quickly when they start looking at your pictures is that you're doing some of these great that aged, corroded copper looking finish. Where did you learn about that?
I I'm not quite sure how I came across it, but I started. There's a guy that used to have a show on TV, and he's in California. David Marks. He's a woodworker, and he turns things, turns wood bowls and that sort of thing. But he had a thing he was doing with patinas, and he was using foils and integrating it into his bowls and things he was making. And it was like great looking stuff. And I was like, how can I do that on a guitar and have it hold up? And so he had a video that I ordered, and that got me kind of interested in the different chemicals and all. And so I started just getting copper and brass and making compartment covers. And then I made some jack plates, some truss rod covers, and I could kind of tie it all together. But like you said, the rabbit hole thing, man, you get down that, and I'd order chemicals from scientific supply places.
Oh,
I would use vinegar and ammonia and cat litter and Miracle with the sawdust and cat litter. You can soak these things and bury them down in that and leave them for a while, and it gives you different patterns on them.
Wow.
So, but I've got a whole stack of pieces I was just running tests on and trying to put notes on the back of them what it was, because I forgot what I had done.
That's cool.
And a lot of them were just like, nah, that's not it. And one problem I had is that, like I said, I live on the water, and all these years I've never had any trouble with rust on my tools. And all of a sudden, it's like, all these tools started, like my chisels and everything started getting rusted. And I think what it was, either from the chemicals or probably the ammonia, even though it was in enclosed containers, when I would open them up to like check things and all, sometimes I'd have them outside, but sometimes I'd have them in the shop. And I think that's what started rusting everything up.
So just like the fumes from
fumes,
all of these. Yeah. Well, I mean, you were using these chemicals to artificially corrode this metal, so it makes sense that it would kind of maybe sneak out and do the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, most of this wasn't with the covers and all. It wasn't to actually corrode it. It was just to get the patinas on it, and you get from darker colors to bright, vivid blues to you can get some reds and greens and just all kinds of things depending on what you're using.
That's really, I mean, those are some of the most interesting finishes. That contrast between just these very, very earthy browns, and then these blues and turquoises start popping out at you. It's beautiful. So you were telling me that you went a little bit further to learn about some specific techniques for the copper top type stuff, the copper patina stuff. Where did you get that?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, and that's the one thing I don't really want to disclose the whole process. And it's a technique that Scott Walker, Walker Guitars, has come up with. And to me, that guy is a genius, man. The work that he does is just phenomenal. And Agreed. He does these metal finishes on his guitars. And I saw those. I was like, oh man, I'd give anything if I could figure out how to do that. And lo and behold, it turned out that every so often he does a 5-day workshop at Roberto Venn on how to do these. And he's got a couple of courses that he does with them. And I happened to hit it when it was back to back with that and building a small onboard preamp. Cool. I booked that and flew out there and spent a week and did the workshops with him. And his are it's a bronze patina finish that he's well known for. But with this technique, you can do various other types of metal finishes. And I don't want to go into it because I'm not comfortable revealing.
No, that's okay.
What he does that he charges for in Roberto Venn. So I feel like I'd kind of be ripping them off doing that. If it was just something I'd come up with, I'd be more than happy to share it. But
I did check. It's understandable.
I did check. They still have the courses there. Another thing, I don't know if he ended up doing this into a course, but when I was there, they were talking about doing an additional course on building cases, because he
Oh
builds
wow.
the most phenomenal cases for a lot of his guitars
Uh-huh.
that he covers in all these like wild fabrics, like upholstered fabrics and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they come out incredible. And he was kind of teaching the people there at Roberto Venn how to do that, so they could start a course. I don't know if they ever got that going or not, which wouldn't really be practical for me to fly out there. And I built one case for somebody one time, and it's like I never want to do that again. It ended up being as much work as the guitar.
I've considered that rabbit hole as well, because yeah. I mean, you can definitely, especially when you're doing a body shape that doesn't necessarily fit into your standard case off the rack. What are your options? Well, you could go with a custom case from a custom case builder and have them keep your body profile on file and churn those out for you, or you can build your own. Or what I'm doing now is I'm just going with soft case. It's just like it doesn't need to fit exactly around the contours of the body. But yeah, those are cool resources. Roberto Venn is we had our local friend here, Eugene builder Joe Parker, on the show, and he did the full course at Roberto Venn and really very much enjoyed his time there, and learned a lot that he's skills that he's using today, of course. So that's something I don't think that we talk too much about, is that idea of going and doing a week-long class here or there, a weekend class here. I know that locally we have the American School of Lutherie with Charles Fox, and there's a lot of those types of classes that he offers, from setup to fretwork to building a whole instrument, electric guitar or something like that in a week's time. Those are definitely some resources that folks could check out, especially if you're really kind of questioning diving into the whole building, and you don't know if it would work out for you, or don't know if you'd get into it and be like, maybe this isn't for me. So definitely costs a little bit for some of these courses, but an investment in a class could either set you in the right direction in the investment for a shop yourself, or just decide, hey, I'm going to do this one time, and maybe that's good.
Yeah, Roberto Venn's the only one I have any experience with,
Mm-hmm.
but I would highly recommend them because everybody there was really super nice, very knowledgeable. Scott
Awesome.
Walker was an incredibly nice guy to work with, very giving of himself and information. And I was super impressed with the students there. They were all like young people, and they were just really turning out some nice stuff.
Cool. So, getting back to instrument materials and stuff like this, I remember you told me one time about some special road trips that you like to go on to collect some wood. Tell us about that.
Well, every once in a while, I guess it kind of stems from going fishing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm home all the time, I get a little antsy sometimes. And my wife is she'll go, you look like you're about ready for a road trip again. So the first one I did, I thought, I really need some kind of an excuse, because I didn't even know where I was going. And I thought, wood. So I just started driving, and I went up, started out in Tallahassee, and stopped and saw the guy was talking about Aaron, the dulcimer guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lunch, and we're talking, and he caught me up what he was doing, and he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "I don't really know." And I said, "You got any suggestion?" He goes, "Yeah, Chattanooga." And I said, "Chattanooga? Why would I want to go to Chattanooga?" He goes, "Oh," he said, "I got a friend that's got a recording studio." He said, "I went up there." He said, "It's really a nice place." So I drove up there, and it's like, it really was a great town. I guess in like 1970 or something, I think Dan Rather or somebody claimed it to be the most polluted town in the country.
How about that?
They had all the foundries and all there.
Oh,
and
sure.
they cleaned up the river, and it's a nice little town. It got like a little area, which I guess used to be kind of a crack town, where they've got like an artisan bakery and craft stores. And anyhow, I ended up, everywhere I would go, I would like go online and start looking for hardwood lumber dealers. So I picked up a little bit of stuff there, and then I headed over to North Carolina and started driving around there. And I'd make different stops, and I thought, they used to build a hell of a lot of furniture here, so it's probably going to be suppliers. And I ended up coming across a company that was about 5 miles from the Virginia border that had really great stuff. I mean, they had like black limba and Spanish cedar and sycamore and all different kinds of things that I like to use. So I was able to stop there, load up a bunch of stuff, and then made a few other stops and found a guy in Georgia. He was kind of in the backwoods, but he had been a forester, and when he retired, he started a sawmill. And I got a few things from him, and he said, "Yeah, I've got some persimmon. Would you, be in it?" I said, "Well, what do I do with persimmon?" And he said, "Well, actually, it's in the ebony family."
Yeah.
And he said, "I've been shipping a fair amount of it to somebody out west that uses it for fingerboards." And it's a lighter color. It's not dark at all. It's a little, I don't know, creamy in some areas, a little gray in other areas, but I guess mostly they dye it. So I picked up some, and I've got it in the storage with a lot of my other wood, but I haven't even actually gotten around to using any of it yet. He had some China berry that is like, wow, that's pretty nice. Look at it, I resawed it for a drop top, and it really had some nice colors, yellows and reds and stuff. So part of it was just kind of looking around and picking up some stuff and trying it. Most of the time it wasn't overly expensive. And I love being able to, one of the biggest things that opened the world of building up for me was getting to the point where I had the tools that I could mill everything myself, where I could where I had a joiner and planer, and I've just got a 14-inch jet, but I ended up putting a riser in it. And there's a guy up in Jacksonville who sells a lot of bandsaw parts and all, and he's like the expert. He's got this catalog. It's like a Bible of tips and all on like the basic Delta 14-inch.
Oh, cool.
And he had some things that I got from to kind of hot rod the system. I switched it over to 220, changed the pulley on it, put the riser in it, different blocks and all.
And hot rod Delta now.
Yeah, it's a jet, but yeah, basically that. And I'm pretty happy with it because I'm like you. I mean, I've got a little more room than you do, but I'm kind of limited. And it'd be nice to have a 18-inch Laguna or something, but I don't. So that works good for me. And I've managed to pick up some good stuff. Most of what I've bought off of Craigslist or eBay. And I got a really nice 8-inch grizzly joiner that I picked up for probably about a third of the cost. Wow. And I ended up, you commented once before, I think I posted a picture of the overarm pin router I got.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, I found that, and I think it was over towards Orlando, but the guy had it for quite a while because it was 3-phase, and nobody was buying it. So I called up a friend of mine. I said, they make converters for that. And I talked to him, and he goes, "Yeah," he said, "I've got one pin router for like $400, and got the free inverter or converter for it, and hooked that up, and it's been nice to have." So, but what I was getting at, it's really nice to be able to buy your own rough lumber, and mill it out. And I love resawing it because it's like each time you open up it's like a book match, and you're like, so wow, look at that,
Exactly,
you never know from one to the next what you're going to get.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at some of the looking at some of your stuff on Instagram here, I can see that it looks like there was a slab of, so I'm looking at a lap steel, and I'm looking at another one of your single cuts that looks like it has the same wood on it. Is that looks like something where there's flame in the waist and then just some crazy curl or burl down towards the bouts and stuff? Is that
Oh,
maple?
yeah. Actually, the lap steel, I think, was some maple burl I picked up at a convention, I think. But the one on that the body style you're talking about.
Yeah.
That is, I think that is also some maple burl that I resawed myself.
That's gorgeous. It's just, I mean, there's so much going on there with, yeah, I've done the same thing with, you know that I like to do local woods as much as I can, and salvaged and recycled, upcycled, and some of the best tops are on pieces that, just from the outside they were ugly, they were dirty, they were, rough sawn, you couldn't really tell, but as soon as you open that up, it's just like a treasure waiting inside. So cool.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of great woods here like you do out there. We've got a lot of pine and oak.
Yeah.
But I've just recently hooked up with a guy in St. Pete that has at the local tree trimmer guys. I'll take him all their stuff. And I've started actually, I've been doing a little trade out with him and stuff, and buying some and getting some really nice exotics that grow here that either damaged in a storm, or somebody needs to have it taken down for some reason or another. Things I didn't even know we had around here. Obviously not native, but he had some like monkey pod, and I got some nice rosewood from him. And I've just recently started using some of that.
Yeah, you've got a picture here of a big old rosewood chunk, and you ended up resawing it into a one-piece body, but it's got this ginormous crack, this occlusion in it, and you stitched it back together with copper tubes, and it's the coolest looking thing. It's going to be an awesome looking instrument.
Well, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that one, but I went into his shop and I saw that, and it was on the end of a board, and the board was like $900 or something. I go, no, I can't do that. He goes, I'll cut that off for you, make you a deal on it. So he was kind of curious when I told him what I was going to do with it.
Yeah.
And the piece was big enough that if I moved that just right, I could get two bodies out of it. Mm-hmm. But I really wanted that inclusion off to the side. Yeah. But I got greedy trying to get two out of it, and I kind of painted myself into a corner. Well, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to finish that one, but I just posted a picture. I thought, maybe somebody will have a good idea. I think what I'm going to have to do, and I wasn't crazy about it, but I think I'm going to end up probably filling that with resin. And going from there. So I've got something solid to attach a bridge and everything to.
Yeah, it's kind of a bridge area there, but
I was going to inset some ebony or something to straddle that. Yeah. But the more I thought about it, I don't know if that's going to do it or not. Yeah. So,
well, you've got. I mean, didn't you like do some copper foil or copper paint on the inside edges of that as well?
Foil.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be cool with some of that. A friend of mine is just started using some of that smooth on epoxy. But like putting some resin in there, that would be really interesting.
Well, in all fairness, I have to give credit to somebody else for that whole idea. There's a guy in England by the name of Ben Crow that builds guitars that had come up with that technique with the split, and I think he was using steel rods, or something, and the gold, and I think he was using copper leaf, but it really tied into what I was doing before, what I saw with the copper leafing that David Marks was doing, and that I wanted to incorporate into guitars, and I thought, I'll try this. So he does some really nice work. And unusual things that are kind of inspiring.
What you're talking about is taking all of these different ideas and trying to use them. I mean, even on what would be considered, familiar body shapes, just to throw a new twist on things. I mean, that's definitely going in a cool direction. So you have some instruments available at 7C Music in St. Petersburg. How did you get connected with those folks over there?
Well, I was really fortunate in that a friend of mine had told me, I just met this guy, moved back to the area from California. He'd worked at Taylor Guitars for 20 years, and he's retired, but he's got a little repair shop in his backyard. This guy that told me was a mailman, But he also builds acoustic guitars and sets up banjos.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I've been going over that house, and that guy's house. He's like, super nice. You got to meet him. Well, then he told me, he said, hey, he just opened up a music store. And so I went by, and I was talking to him. He and his son opened it up together. He, I guess, was pretty much Bob Taylor's right-hand man, or one of them anyhow.
Oh, wow.
He designed their first electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
He designed the onboard pickup system for their acoustics. And his son had also worked there, and at various times in their lives, they've both been touring musicians. So super nice guys to deal with. And they opened a really nice shop. It's in an area town. You would not stumble across it. The road, they've been open a little over a year. The road has been tore up in front the whole time.
Oh, no.
And they're doing a killer business because the word got out that they do really good repairs, very reasonable, quick turnaround, and are nice guys to deal with.
Cool.
And it's a nice high-end shop. They've got Taylors, they've got Collins, Eastmans, a few other brands, and Bonnell's.
Yeah, it's cool to go to the website and to scroll down and yep, they're the Taylors, they're the Collins, they're the boutique builder instruments, Bonnell guitars. There they are.
Well, when I first went in, I showed him a picture on my phone. He goes, yeah, that's nice, and that was it. And I thought, well, and I'm normally not like this, but I was going to be persistent. And I went back and took in a guitar, and he opened up the case and looked at it. He goes, this is really nice. He said, thank God you're not another one of those Tele Strat guys. We got enough of those already. And they've been really very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
They've been very helpful. It gave me, he's the one that kind of pointed me in the direction of like kind of settling down and getting focused. He said, you're kind of all over the place here. You know, you're like, everything's different. And why don't you try and kind of work out some models? And that one design I did that you had commented on, it's on the Instagram, it's a kind of, I call it salmon, but it's kind of a peachy color.
Uh-huh.
When I drew that out and took it in to show it to him, because he was telling me about how he designed the electrics and how he had sketched it out, hang it on the wall for a month. We kept looking at it, make a few changes. He said it took him several months of moving the knobs around on it till he was, finally happy with it. So I showed him the sketch, and he goes, yeah. He said, I like that. Mind if I take a picture and send it off to a friend of mine? And all right, so he sent it off, and he calls the guy. The guy goes, yeah, he likes it. He likes it. All right, thanks, Kim. I said, who was that? He goes, that's Kim Breedlove at Taylor. And he goes, he's a really good designer. I just wanted to run it by him. I said, holy smokes, man. I stumbled into the right place here.
Yeah, you did. That's cool. That's cool. And just, I mean, that's some serious feedback. I mean, from people of that caliber, that, and that's a cool looking guitar. It's a kind of offset looking thing there. Are you going with for I mean, obviously if you're building off a Telecaster, I mean, I'm expecting that you do a 25.5-inch scale. Is that what you're running on most of your guitars?
Well, I go back and forth. I do some 25.5. I've got some in 25s, and I've got some in a 24 and 3/4. Mm-hmm. It depends on a particular model.
Mm-hmm. That's cool that you're offering all of that. I mean, it's definitely a big part of the feel. Would you be willing to swap out scale lengths on a particular model for is that an option that you would offer to a customer?
Sure. If somebody wanted something different, I would be glad to do that. What I normally do is probably not the best thing for a builder that wants to sell guitars to do, but I really like to just build what I want and hope somebody wants it. I'm not really crazy about somebody coming in and ordering something that they want built. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, and I haven't.
Yeah.
But I don't like that. Is it done yet? Is it done yet?
Right.
Can we change that?
Right. That I've definitely gone through that thinking myself, and I've had some conversations with some folks about that. Like, do you kind of offer it up as you're a a completely custom builder? You know, you will do anything for anyone, or do you keep it on spec? You know, you build what you want, you put it out there, and just believe that there is a guitar for anyone and everyone, and somebody will eventually come along and take it. I can tell you that just, you know, looking across your catalog of instruments here, regardless of what it is, whether it's this new, you know, Shosugiban Telecaster, or where it's this new salmon colored one, it's your designs are very appealing. You're saying you're, you know, struggling with this idea of, you know, putting the right curves in the right places and the knobs in the right places. You're doing the right thing here. It's everything has an appeal to it. I'm drawn to so many details of your work here. It's excellent stuff. And look at that. I see you got a picture. You got your own corner at 7C right there with your instruments on the wall. That's cool.
Thanks. I want to back up here just a minute. When you mentioned the Telecaster, I want to correct you and say Telecaster-ish.
Ish, yes.
Because I decided I'm not going to build any more of those, because like David said, there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
But he was laughing about back. He said, you know, a lot of people keep coming in the shop and go, is anybody building these Telecasters? So I decided I would take one and make some changes in the body style, and round out the bottom a little bit more, and change the treble horn a little bit. But you can't really, I figured I couldn't really get away from changing the bass upper bout on it, because then you kind of start losing the telly thing.
Yeah.
But
your heel is definitely different. You definitely sculpted heel, yeah.
Kind of keep in that same kind of thing with that, and yet have it be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And also, if anybody is interested, if there's anybody that wants one, or anybody in the St. Pete area that's interested in repairs or anything from 7Cs, it is the name spelled out 7, and then C, the letter C.
Yep.
Music.
Yeah. That's a great connection you have there, and you know, a lot of folks walking in, being able to see your instruments alongside all these other well-known brands, and being able to pick something up and plug it in if they want to. That's cool. When it comes to otherwise getting yourself out there, so you're in the store, you're on Instagram. Are there any local guitar shows that you regularly frequent?
No, I don't. We have one. I think it was just in January in Orlando, and no, is it? Maybe it's over in Tampa. I think it's over in Tampa, and it's a pretty big one. I think it's at the fairgrounds in Tampa. I didn't go to it. I don't know. I may in the future. I just haven't had any big interest in doing that yet. And that's really about all we have around here.
Yeah.
I know you seem to have quite a few in your area, but we don't really have that here.
Well, the Pacific Northwest is kind of a special place in terms of lutherie, and from the you know, the I-5 corridor up and down, you know, through from Oregon into Washington, we've got a lot of folks here, and of course, you know, the Guild of American Luthiers is located in Tacoma, so a lot of stuff is connected with them. But I would expect a few more shows down that way, huh?
I don't know. Let's see. A few years ago, they had the harp guitar gathering in Miami. And they may have a show down there. Not that I'm positive about, but they may. But yeah, you're in like the hotbed area there, and that's why I asked you beforehand why you contacted me. Surely you haven't run out of great builders there.
No, it's, you know, getting you on the show here was something I wanted to do specifically because of your experience and going through the what has become sort of a I wouldn't say typical. I'm trying to minimize that, but you're part of this era of folks finding lutherie through the forums, through the guild, through just the plethora, the wealth of information that's available online, and the very just the very giving and the very sharing attitude of builders in the States here, and I think it's important for people to know that, you know, from coast to coast, we've got people who are doing this good work, putting their ideas to instruments and really making this world of boutique instruments an interesting place. So we're coming up on an hour here. And is there anything else you wanted to add? Is there anything that anything people can look forward to from Bonnell Guitars this year?
Not at this point. I got a few things I'm working on, but they haven't really completely gelled yet. So, but nothing I can think of. But the hour kind of flew by.
Yeah.
I do want to say you touched on the Guild there, and I would recommend that to anybody that's interested in building, because that was a major thing for me. The first one I went to, I couldn't believe how open and giving everybody was.
Yeah.
You would think they'd kind of be, well, I'm not telling you my secrets.
Yeah.
And the workshops, it was funny because I went there and I was first interested in acoustic, and I went to a workshop by Charles Fox on the vacuum systems that he used in his school. Yeah. So I ran home and I built this vacuum system and everything. And then Mike Doolin and John Greven did a KTM-9 workshop when it was a new product.
Yeah.
And I sat in on that and started using that. And every time I go there, I just learn so much that I, get to bring home.
Yeah, I mean, just like going to the conventions themselves. I mean, you learn as much or more in just the side conversations with people. Having a beer at the little cafe down the street, as you do in the sessions themselves, and just making those connections with people. And then, of course, if anybody doesn't, if they're not a guild member, it's very inexpensive, and you receive the quarterly journal, and the quarterly journal, for the most part, I mean, there's always submitted articles from people all over the place all the time, but for the most part, the way that the quarterly works is it's transcribed sessions from the conference itself. So when you're talking about these, this Charles Fox's vacuum system, you're talking about the Mike Doolin and John Greven's KTM-9. I remember those remember those articles, and I actually was just reading up on them and had to email Mike Doolin and clarify some things about some of the stuff he was talking about. So it's excellent resource, amazing resource, and it really gives you. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do here on the Lutherist is to really make it obvious and make it clear that this community is open and welcoming, and regardless of how much we put some builders on pedestals and how much we put some people's work up there, they're real people. They're real down-to-earth people, and the Guild, you just get that from reading through those articles and reading those people, and that the interviews and the Meet the Maker articles and stuff like that. It makes you so happy to be part of what we're doing here.
Well, I want to thank you and Paul for what you're doing, for having me on, for one thing, and for the great work you're doing. I'm really loving the podcast. I've been listening to them for quite a while. I love the way it's going, the information. I just recently listened to both of the electronics ones and found them very informative. And I was really impressed with all the research you did to get ready for that.
Well, it's fun. It's just like that's the thing about it, is that this is just fun. It's when you enjoy being geeky and you have an opportunity to geek out, and then there's even an audience. An audience that wants to listen to it.
Well, you guys are doing great, and
cool.
And I love that. I mean, I never thought a small-time builder like me would end up on a podcast.
Oh,
so I love that the fact that you're exposing all of us small builders that nobody's probably ever heard of to a wide audience, and we're able to share some stuff and get stuff back, and It's great. It's amazing the amount of information that's available. There's a lot of great podcasts. There's schools. There's all the stuff we've talked about.
Yeah. It's a good time to be living in this work that we're doing here. Yeah. All right. Well, Jim, I'm gonna press stop on the recording here, but I'll keep you online to say goodbye. Thanks so much for being on the Lutherist podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye now.